Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. My name is Jordan, and I am coming to you from the infield at Pocono Raceway this Friday before the Pocono races. So let's go ahead and dive in on what happened last weekend, 4th of July weekend, at the Chicago Street Race. We had the Xfinity Series and Cup Series run, and starting off with Cup Series qualifying, we had top five, starting at 5-1, Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs, Connor Mosack, Kyle Larson, and Shane Van Gisbergen. Going into stage one, our top five were Cole Custer, Connor Mosack, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and SVG getting the stage win. And then going into stage two, we had Sheldon Creed, 5th, Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, Sammy Smith, and Austin Hill. And then our race winner, we have our top five. Jesse Love came in 5th, Parker Kligerman 4th, Kyle Larson 3rd, Ty Gibbs 2nd, and SVG got the win for his 3rd win. This race, beautiful weather out there when this race was going on. Being a little nitpicky with NBC and their broadcast, you could have only thought there were 3 cars racing when we were watching the broadcast. I think the radio did a lot better job. And for the most part, with the exception of the differencing in pit strategies, it looked like it was just a big race between SVG and Larson, with SVG kind of, you could almost argue, playing with Larson, toying with him on how he actually let him go and then ended up catching him again. It's like it was almost like a cat and mouse type thing, but it's like, oh, I'll let you feel like you're going to win and then come back and just beat him, especially on that first stage. Larson was out to a lead, and then SVG came out and got it. Then going into that, I mean, overall it was a pretty wild race. But unless you watched it on TV, you didn't really know that because of how everything panned out. I mean, they stayed with the leaders. I don't think they really even showed anybody else on there as well. So that it ended up being a good race, what you could see, and then it ended up being a good race afterwards too, showing everything else going on between Larson, SVG, and then some of these people fighting in the back, and they're racing. Then we switch over to Saturday, and Saturday was the, I don't know how you want, or excuse me, Sunday. Sunday was the typical race at Chicago for the 2nd year in a row. I know it's hard to say typical whenever you go on, but it rained. We had a rain delay, and then it ended due to time. Didn't even end. We were, I think, 10 to 15 laps short on our race. So going over qualifying, our top five: SVG 5th, Tyler Reddick 4th, Michael McDowell 3rd, Ty Gibbs 2nd, Kyle Larson 1st. And then stage one, we had top five: Larson, Briscoe, Gibbs, Christopher Bell, and SVG getting the stage win. Going into stage two, again, kind of that change in pit strategy. And this is where it all played out, because you kind of had that stage two end, and then people were kind of holding off on the rain or on the time. And with the rain tires played a big role in this race as well. Our top five: Martin Truex Jr., Carson Hocevar, Keselowski, Bowman 2nd, Joey Hand 1st. And so this race proved to be probably frustrating for a lot of guys racing it with the rain and the time and the time restriction. I know fans were frustrated with the ending at 8:20-ish, I think is what it ended up being, Central Time. And so going into the stage end, or the end of the race, ended up being Alex Bowman got the win, running away with it. I still don't know how he got through everything, because he ended up punting Bubba Wallace pretty hard into the wall, and his car was perfectly fine for the most part, with a little bit of superficial damage. So I don't know what to say about that. Then you got Tyler Reddick second. He almost caught. He ended up losing by 2.8 seconds, but he almost caught Bowman. Then he hit the wall, overdrove it, which that's typical Reddick. He overdrives a lot of things. He likes to hit the outside wall like Kyle Larson does. Ty Gibbs third, Joey Hand fourth, and Michael McDowell fifth. A lot of the guys that tried that other strategy, they either just lost it or the tires were wearing out so fast they couldn't do anything about it. But Bubba Wallace ended up taking out Bowman at the end of the race, hitting him on the cool-down lap, cost him $50,000. Then SVG before halfway through the stage 2, he got taken out in the rain when it was Chase Briscoe sent it a little too hard into the wall, hit the tire barrier that Kevin Harvick made famous and Kyle Larson made famous last year. They hit the wall. Harvick hit the tire barrier. That's where, and then Larson hit it again this year. So Briscoe went in there and he just clipped SVG. He hydroplaned and clipped SVG and just took him out of the race. Broke the car, unfortunately for him, because I think he probably would have won it again if it wasn't for that. Alex Bowman was at the right place at the right time, in my opinion, on this one. I don't think he would have won it per se if we didn't have the time shortened. I know, we had Reddick slip, but I don't think he would have pushed as hard. So I mean, it's tough to tell. I don't like the way the race ended. That's my thing, and it's like the second year in a row we've had rain stop this race, and then we're forced out on time, and I think that's really, really silly. I think why don't we go, if we want to do street racing, which it looks like according to the television results, this was the most watched race for NBC even out of last year. Then let's move it to a different, more fair weather city, or even not so much on the road. Like IndyCar does the race at Tampa, where it's on an airport. They use part of a runway in the taxiways, or IndyCar 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I think it was 20 years ago, ran in Houston around the Superdome and Reliant and so on. So I think there's more options out there for this race. The only thing that I'll say that I'm not a big fan of is we keep putting more and more road course races in the track and in the schedule, and I like my road courses, but there's just so many of them, and it's ridiculous in my opinion on how many we have going forward. So with that being said, that was into that race. That puts Bowman in there, and you hear everybody else say he's quote unquote locked in the playoffs. I think that's poppycock, because we still have 6 races before the playoffs start, and we have 4 spots available. And if somebody with a better scoring that's right below that cut line, let's say like Bubba Wallace, he gets in, and then there's other people that get in that could knock Bowman out. They can knock Suarez out. Suarez is, I think, almost dead last among everybody that's in the playoffs, even the people that don't have wins. And the only reason he's higher than them is because he's got a win. So I think that we need to get away from this wording of locked in the playoffs when you get a win, because you theoretically could still get knocked out. It just hasn't happened yet. So moving on to our news that we have this week. So the number 6 car for Xfinity, they had decided to step out, and they're not going to be fielding that car going into Pocono. Unfortunately for them, that's a shame. And then we have that's JD Motorsports withdrawing that car. We have a couple other people that are just going to be running a little bit, or repeat running. Gunk sponsoring Michael McDowell. We discussed about the information with Bubba Wallace. He got fined $50,000 for his incident after the race at Chicago. And then Ryan Blaney has been nominated for the best driver by the ESPYs, or was nominated. I think, good for him on that. and see if he can take that win. He's going against Max Verstappen from Formula One, IndyCar's Alex Palou, and Matt Hagan from NHRA. So it ended up being Max Verstappen got the win for the best driver with the ESPYs, not Blaney or not any of the other gentlemen. So that happened. I think it was last night, actually Thursday, that the ESPYs came out. So unfortunately, that did not take too well. We have going into Pocono. We have also the entry list for more notable drivers running in the Cup Series. We have Cody Ware is going to be running the 15, AJ Allmendinger is running the 16, and JJ Yaley is going to be running the Ollie's number 44 for Pocono in the Cup Series. And lastly, we have some big news in our silly season coming up, and that is Noah Gragson signed with Front Row Motorsports for next year to drive the 34. He will be doing that multiple year deal. If you remember, Michael McDowell moved on to Spire Motorsports next year to drive to 77. So a little bit of changing around, staying in the Ford camp. Haley Deegan is officially out at AM Racing for Xfinity. She is done right now. Who knows if she'll be coming back? And it's kind of it's amazing because she was the most popular Xfinity driver last year. She's still one of the most popular drivers, and she doesn't have a ride. Now, we could sit here and talk a lot about how her first truck race kind of messed her up on stuff. We can talk about how I think she just got handcuffed a little bit. I like what Dale Jr. was saying about her too. Unfortunately, with her, when she started coming in was in 2020 when you just showed up and raced. So she didn't get the experience of learning how to race with practice and qualifying too. So, I think that worked to her disadvantage. I think the coddling that happened with her spotter and her team in her first year hurt her as well in the trucks. And then, people will argue, well, she was over at ThorSport. I don't think ThorSport wanted her because I think Ford forced her on ThorSport. And so if you don't want somebody, why are you going to help them out as much? Yeah, they did give her Ben Rhodes as crew chief, but it's not just the crew chief. You have to coach the person. So I would look to see Ford, if they want to keep her in there, find somebody. I don't, as much as I don't really care for him, somebody like a Joey Logano, a Keselowski, a Blaney, somebody that has multiple years experience or even championships, a Harvick, to talk to her and teach her how to race better on pavement, because she's a good dirt racer. She just doesn't have, and she comes from a very dirt racing pedigree with her dad in motocross. So, that's rather unfortunate for her. We'll see how everything pans out. If maybe she can pick up a part-time ride going forward this year. Maybe she jumps back in the trucks. Who knows what'll happen there. So, moving forward with that, let's go to the weekend. The weekend plans here. We have today, Friday, we have at 2 o'clock and 2:30 practice and qualifying for the trucks. That will be on FS2. 5:30 p.m. Eastern, we have the CRC Brake Clean 175 on FS1. MRN and SiriusXM has a simulcast. Be watching out because we're scheduled we have rain in the forecast, possibly between 5 and 6. And then we move over into Saturday where we have Xfinity practice and qualifying at 10:30 on USA. And then we go into practice and qualifying at noon and 12:45 for Cup Series on USA. MRN has the radio broadcast for that. And then Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we have the Explorer the Pocono Mountains 225. That will be on USA. MRN has the radio broadcast, and SiriusXM will simulcast it. And then Sunday, we have the Great American Getaway 400 presented by VisitPA.com at 2:30 Eastern. USA will have that with MRN with the radio broadcast and SiriusXM. This one should be a good one to watch because we've been having some back and forths with Larson and Denny And last year we had the same thing happen between Larson and Denny. So there's a lot to digest there and see what happens, see if it boils over into now as well. So just if you guys are watching, be tuned for that, and we will catch you guys after the race next week. Hope you guys have a good one, and see you then.